Chapter 2. Elijah's roller coaster, from fire to fear. Remember how we talked about Cain's attitude, explosion? Well, hold on to your hat, because we're about to look at someone who went from superhero status to hiding under a tree faster than you can say depression spiral. Meet Elijah, God's front page prophet who went from calling down fire from heaven before an entire nation in a massive spiritual showdown to having a full-blown pity party. The mountain peak experience. First, let's set the scene. Elijah just pulled off the spiritual equivalent of winning the Super Bowl, the World Series, and Olympics all in one day. 1 Kings 18. And it came to pass, at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice. You can read the whole story. Single-handedly, he faced down 450 false prophets of Baal, called down literal fire from heaven, proved God's power in the face of an entire doubting nation. He ignited a massive revival. Talk about a spiritual high. Dopamine exploding everywhere. This was next level, Marvel movie type stuff. The spirit of Elijah was so powerful that centuries later, John the Baptizer would carry that same spirit of Elijah when telling us about the coming of Christ. That Mount Carmel revival was peak performance, purpose-filled living at its finest. Then the crash. But then, one threat from a vindictive, shriveled Queen Jezebel, and our superhero goes into hiding. 1 Kings 19. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. And Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, Let the gods do so to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow, about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. Let's break this down. Yesterday, partnering with God in supernatural display of strength, where fire licked up and melted water-soaked boulders on the mountain. Today, running from one tiny, angry queen. Tomorrow, requesting God to end his life. The juniper tree moment. 1 Kings 19. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die. And he said, It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Sound familiar? Ever had a massive win in your life? Maybe aced that test, won the game, led that youth group event. Even think of a spiritual mountaintop moment, and then some tiny nothingness disturbs your confidence in God, and suddenly you're convinced your whole life is over. Welcome to the Juniper Tree Club. God's practical reply. Here's where it gets interesting. How does God handle his depressed prophet? First, he sends an angel with food. Then he lets Elijah deep sleep it off, feeds him again, then addresses the spiritual stuff. 1 Kings 19. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. You notice something? God didn't immediately jump into a spiritual lecture. Sometimes depression just needs 2 healthy sandwiches with a nap in between meals. Eat, sleep, eat. Then we'll talk about it. The cave conversation. When Elijah finally makes it to the cave, he's got his complaint all ready. He's ready to launch lava rockets at God. 1 Kings 19. And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I, only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Elijah's playing the I'm all alone card. But God's response? Yea, Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal. Here's the teen translation. Dude, chill. You're not the only one. There are literally thousands of others on Team Jehovah. The epic comeback. Know what happens next? Elijah gets back in the game with a superhuman sprint. 1 Kings 18, and the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. What does that mean? Those two divine sandwiches and that recovery rest kicked in, plus some serious supernatural empowerment. We're talking about outrunning horses and chariots for 17 miles. The average horse-drawn chariot can maintain speeds of around 25 to 30 miles an hour, while today's fastest human sprinter barely tops 15 miles an hour for just a few seconds. But Spirit-powered Elijah, he's breaking every record in the books, outpacing King Ahab's royal chariot all the way from Mount Carmel to Jezreel. That's supernaturally sprinting faster than a horse for 17 miles, 24.7 kilometers, outpacing the kingdom's fastest horses, and probably taunting the king along the way, who knows. And this was pretty much 3 days after calling down fire from heaven and slaughtering 450 false prophets, making headline news, igniting a world revival. Your turn to reflect. Let's take a moment to absorb these questions and write your answer. Think about your biggest victory moment. What happened right afterward? Did you experience any kind of emotional crash? Spiritual letdown? When you're feeling down, do you tend to imagine you're the only one dealing with your struggles? Do you accuse God? How often do you take care of your physical needs, food, rest, when dealing with spiritual or emotional challenges? Your take home. Here's what we can learn from Elijah's roller coaster. Even spiritual giants have valley moments. Sometimes God's solution starts with a meal and a nap. You're never alone, as depression wants you to think. God's power doesn't just leave because you're feeling empty. Get a refill. Massive comeback is always possible with our God. A moment to ponder. Before moving on, consider this. Elijah went from calling down fire to hiding under a tree to supernaturally running, all within a short span. Your emotional ups and downs don't define you. God's not done with your story just because you're having a juniper tree moment. Remember, God didn't waste time arguing with Elijah's imaginations gone rabid scenario. Instead, he provided practical help, nutrition, gentle correction, and refueling for a fresh mission. That's the God we serve. Practical enough to feed you, patient enough to let you rest, and powerful enough to get you out running again. In our next chapter, we're going to meet someone who makes Elijah's juniper tree moment look like a walk in the park. If you thought Elijah had it rough handling accusations from one whining, defeated queen, wait till you meet Job, a guy who lost everything, and we mean all caps, everything, whose own wife told him to curse God and die, whose friends were so shell-shocked they couldn't speak for a week straight. Yet, through his story, we'll discover how God helps us navigate forward. When life hits maximum crisis mode, we're talking about skin erupting, fortune vanishing, family gone, the works. But don't worry, God's got some mind-exploding questions that will help snap Job and us back into proper alignment with reality. You ready to dive in?